Mark, over to you.
Right. Thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon, everybody. So amazing times. It's great to be here at this point. And of course, weather has been a nuanced thing for us at times here in the generation phase of this mission. But again, look outside right now, great weather. Hopefully we will keep all of that, although the breezes continue to be an issue for us, but a minor one for us in terms of weather. If we could pull up the satellite imagery here, you can see currently what we're looking at. Another beautiful day here in Florida. See a few cumulus clouds moving from the east side of the state towards the west. That is our onshore flow that we've had really the most for the last 2 weeks or so. And a few of those cumulus clouds could evolve later today into a few showers, much like what we saw yesterday evening. And again, that's going to be one of the watch items for weather as we go into tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon as well. Let's take a look at some of the overview slides here just to kind of give you a synopsis of what we're looking at here. So the breezy weather does continue. Again, Artemis is a very resilient vehicle, so despite the breezes, it looks like that concern is a minimal concern for our day of launch. Lightning risk with any sort of showers that we have is quite low, generally only on the order of 5 to 10%, and that would be generally during the late afternoon, and any of that activity pushes towards Orlando after that. So again, it leaves us in a better spot here for our launch opportunity. We take a little bit look at what else could potentially be of an impact. You may have heard about the sun. It's become a little bit more active. Here over the last day, we've had a solar flare erupt, but again, no or minimal impact for us out of that, as most of the energy is not earthward facing. So again, we continue to look good in that department as well. We look towards backup opportunities. So for whatever reason, if we can't utilize tomorrow, the weather, of course, is a changeable entity, and we do have a tendency to move towards somewhat less favorable through the rest of the week. It isn't a huge drop-off, but again, kind of a little bit more of a situation where we'll have to monitor those feisty cumulus clouds and potentially a few showers and breezes as well. So we go to the next slide, please. And again, I just wanted to bring this up real quickly with the sun. So this was an image here from this morning. Again, the area that's circled on the solar disk, that is the area that we were watching that produced a solar flare yesterday. Again, it's directed most of its energy away from the Earth, and in fact, there's been no response in terms of the particular particles that we look at that could influence the launch vehicle. And so by this point, or within the next couple of hours, if we don't get a response at all from our satellite data, then that threat will have waned as well. We'll still have to watch that sunspot group, however, because it is rotating off towards the center of the solar disk. So again, this flare, not a concern, but should there be additional ones, that will be something that we'll have to monitor a bit. But again, at the current time, I see no issues in terms of our launch capability for that. Next slide, please. All right, and taking a look at our cross-section. So we meteorologists like to look at the atmosphere not only on maps, but we also like to look at what's happening through the depth of the atmosphere and with time. So here at Kennedy Space Center on this graph, you can see the metrics there, altitude there, going up into the atmosphere basically to the level of what a jet aircraft would fly. And then in time, we go from left to right from today through the weekend, including our launch opportunities. So the green on this map, which pops out here, is just a moisture profile. It doesn't necessarily mean rain. It just means that there's a little bit more of a predisposition for more clouds and rain. You also see the winds on there. Those are the black lines that are there with the little barbs on the end of them. So that gives us an indication of wind speed. So right now we're out of the east-southeast. We'll generally remain in that direction. We might back a little bit more to easterly winds as we go, but generally speeds in the 15 to 20 knot range, which again does not violate any of our liftoff weather constraints there. You do see superimposed on there the various launch opportunities, including tomorrow as the primary window. and then the next 3 days. So you do see a day-to-day fluctuation with that moisture content. On any given day, we'll likely get a few showers to develop off of that. But again, with the onshore flow, most of those showers with the sea breeze each day, which tend to be the more vigorous showers, will move off towards Orlando. You do see towards the end of this chart, so going into the weekend and beyond, a much more massive amount of moisture, the green there. And did want to point that out because this is just but one model at one time. And there has been a fair amount of inconsistency to how that moisture evolves. There's just pretty strong hints that we will see an increasingly unfavorable environment as we get beyond this weekend and maybe late into the weekend. But again, I wanted to point that out because some of the charts I'm going to show utilizing another model gives you an idea of the battle that us meteorologists follow every day with trying to assess the uncertainty component of the atmosphere. So next slide, please. All right, so this is for tomorrow. Again, the green blotches here would indicate rain. You can see still an onshore flow. You do see a little bit of green to the west of us. Again, that would be sea breeze-driven activity that has moved off towards the west during the late day hours. But still, if you squint hard enough, you can see a few green blotches lurking in the Atlantic waters. Again, much like yesterday evening, if you were out and about, a few showers rolled in. That is certainly a possibility for us, again, for tomorrow evening. Next slide, please. We are now in range, though, of some of our more high-resolution model guidance. So this indicates two different models that we look at here for the opening of our launch window for tomorrow evening. You can see some of them showing a few blotches of showers offshore, particularly the model that's on the left there. The right is mostly clear for us and has more of the showers, again, to the west of us. And again, in this pattern with an onshore flow, any showers that we have will move from east to west there. So again, looks pretty good. Even if we have showers around, we have a 2-hour launch window, we should be able to shoot the gap between those showers, and none of these look particularly vigorous. Again, as I mentioned, the risk for lightning, which would expand our standoff distances as far as us launching a vehicle, looks pretty minimal for that threat for tomorrow. Next slide, please. So putting the graphics into numbers here, still maintaining a 20% chance of a no-go condition during the launch window. So the optimistic side of me says that means 80% chance of go here. Again, isolated showers wandering around, but again, a lot of real estate between those showers in all likelihood. So again, we should be able to find some clear air to launch Artemis II. Again, there's those winds out of the east-southeast, 15 to 20 knots, mild temperatures there. And again, the order of concerns from the weather standpoint here, cumulus cloud, and then winds would be a secondary threat, and then a much more distant threat would be solar weather. Again, the current flare, not a concern. It would be if there were any additional ones that form on the sun, potentially we would have to watch those. So let's go into the next day for our Thursday. Again, pretty similar pattern, still onshore flow. It does look a little windier, again, so that is an additional concern. And you also see a little bit more green, at least in the area. So again, I do suspect that a Thursday evening attempt would have a little bit more weather to deal with. So a POV of roughly 40% is what I'd be advertising for a Thursday evening launch attempt. Again, very similar concerns with the cumulus clouds and the winds as well. And then the next day, going into our Friday to close out the work week here, again, you see very similar pattern, winds still in that roughly 15 to 20 knot range, and easterly or southeasterly, and still some green blotches out over the ocean. So again, that's a hint that there'll still be enough moisture to generate some showers. But there does, again, look to be more breaks in that weather for Friday. So POV would go back down to 25%. So roughly in the same ballpark as tomorrow for Friday. Tomorrow still looks to be probably the most optimum day of the lot. And then finally, going into the weekend for Saturday, again, this is what I pointed out on that cross-section in my earlier slides, is that moisture fetch that was shown later in the weekend on that model, you can see it's a lot closer to home as we go into Saturday. It's actually spilling some of that moisture in towards us. Again, this is probably the most aggressive model at that. So again, just part of that uncertainty component that we deal with when we have limited forward visibility going out a number of days. So all things considered, a Saturday evening launch attempt would definitely have to throttle the POV back up again to right now about 30% or close to 1 in 3 chance of a weather violation on that date. So tomorrow looks to be the best. Other days hit and miss, but still pretty good. There's nothing here that is screaming a no-go for the entirety of the window for any one of these attempts.